The quiet hero, the morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Burnett and Cross Financial, casting long shadows across the marble lobby. Sarah Bennett adjusted her briefcase and stepped into the elevator, her mind already racing through the day's meetings. As CEO, she thrived on the rush of high-stakes decisions and rapid-fire negotiations. But today, something felt different. The elevator lurched unexpectedly between the third and fourth floors. Sarah's hand flew to the rail as the lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting bathed everything in an eerie red glow. "Not now," she muttered, reaching for her phone. No signal. She pressed the emergency button. Nothing happened. She pressed it again, harder this time. The silence that followed made her chest tighten. Sarah had faced boardrooms full of hostile investors. She had navigated corporate takeovers and financial crises. But standing alone in a darkened elevator, suspended somewhere between floors, she felt a flutter of panic she hadn't experienced in years. Her breathing quickened. The walls seemed to press inward. Then she heard Ita's voice, calm and steady, coming from somewhere above. "Hello? Is someone in there? Yes?" Sarah called out, hating the tremor in her voice. "I'm stuck." "Okay, my name is Daniel. I'm going to help you. Can you tell me your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Bennett." "Sarah, I need you to stay calm. Help is coming, but it might take a little while. Can you do that for me?" There was something about his voice and hurried, gentle, reassuring, that made her shoulders relax slightly. "I think so," she said. "Good, that's really good. Now, I'm going to keep talking to you, okay? You're not alone." For the next 20 minutes, Daniel spoke to her through the elevator shaft. He told her about the building's emergency protocols, about how these things always looked scarier than they were. His voice never wavered, never rushed. He asked her questions, where she was from, what she did. Small things that kept her mind occupied. Sarah found herself responding, sharing details she rarely discussed with anyone. She told him about growing up in Philadelphia, about her late nights at the office, about the constant pressure to prove herself in a world that still questioned women in power. "That sounds exhausting," Daniel said simply. "It is," she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. "You know what I think," he said. "I think the strongest people are the ones who can admit when they're tired." Before Sarah could respond, she heard the clang of metal and machinery. The elevator shuddered, then slowly began to descend. Light flooded in as the doors finally opened on the ground floor. A crowd had gathered: security guards, building maintenance, her own staff. But Sarah only looked for one person. "Which one is Daniel?" she asked, stepping out on shaky legs. A security guard pointed to a man near the back of the crowd. He was tall, with dark hair and an easy smile. He wore jeans and a navy polo shirt, and held a potted plant in one hand. Basil, from the looks of it. Nothing about him suggested he was trying to stand out. Their eyes met for just a moment. He gave her a small nod, the kind that said, "You're okay now," and then he turned toward the door. "Wait," Sarah called out, pushing through the crowd. But Daniel had already stepped outside into the bustling city morning, disappearing among the other pedestrians on the sidewalk. Sarah stood at the glass doors, watching him go. She could have followed. She could have sent someone after him. But something stopped her. Maybe it was respect for his quiet dignity. Maybe it was the realization that he hadn't wanted recognition or gratitude. He had simply done what needed to be done. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about him. 3 weeks passed. Sarah found herself distracted during meetings, wondering about the man who had talked her through one of her most vulnerable moments. She had tried to find him, asked building security, checked visitor logs, even posted on community boards. Nothing then. On a Thursday afternoon, she decided to visit the new community garden initiative her company was sponsoring downtown. It was good publicity, her assistant had said. Sarah rarely attended these events, but something drew her there. The garden was a small oasis tucked between two office buildings. Raised beds overflowed with vegetables and herbs. Children laughed as they watered seedlings under the supervision of volunteers. And there, kneeling beside a bed of tomatoes with a young girl, was Daniel. Sarah's breath caught. She watched as he showed the girl, his daughter, clearly how to check the soil for moisture. His movements were patient, his attention completely focused on the child beside him. The little girl said something that made him laugh, a warm, genuine sound that carried across the garden. Sarah found herself walking toward them before she had fully decided to do so. "Excuse me," she said softly. Daniel looked up, recognition flickering across his face. He stood slowly, brushing dirt from his hands. "Sarah," he said, and she noticed he remembered her name. "I've been looking for you," she said. "Have you?" He seemed genuinely surprised. "You left before I could thank you." Daniel glanced down at his daughter, who was watching them with curious eyes. "You don't need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same. But they didn't. You did." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "I was just in the right place." "Daddy knows everything about elevators," the little girl announced proudly. "He used to fix them." "Emma," Daniel said gently, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "You're an elevator technician?" Sarah asked. "Was. Now I mostly do odd jobs, things with flexible hours." He looked at Emma with such tenderness that Sarah felt something shift in her chest. Being a dad comes first these days. Sarah understood then. The potted basil, the community garden, the calm, unhurried voice that had talked her through her panic. This was a man who had chosen a different kind of success, one measured not in corner offices or profit margins, but in moments with his daughter, in helping others without expecting anything in return. "I own the company in that building," Sarah said. "Bennett and Cross Financial." "I know," Daniel said simply. "I'd like to do something for you. A reward, or I don't want a reward, Sarah." The way he said her name with kindness, not familiarity, made her pause. "Then what can I do?" she asked. Daniel looked around the garden, at the volunteers and children, at the green growing things that somehow thrived in the concrete city. "Your company is sponsoring this place. That's enough. This garden feeds people, teaches kids about where food comes from. It matters." Sarah followed his gaze. She saw the garden differently now, not as a tax write-off or a publicity opportunity, but as something real, something that made people's lives genuinely better. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Why did you leave that day, without even giving me your name?" Daniel considered this for a moment, watching Emma return to her tomatoes. "Because you didn't need me anymore. You were safe." That was all that mattered. Such simple words, such profound humility. Sarah found herself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in weeks. "Would it be all right if I volunteered here sometimes? I'd like to learn about the garden." Daniel's expression softened. "I think that would be all right." As Sarah knelt beside Emma to examine the tomato plants, feeling the warm soil under her fingers, she realized something important. She had spent years building an empire, proving her worth through achievements and accolades. But Daniel had taught her something different that day in the elevator. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present for another person, expecting nothing in return. The sun climbed higher over the city garden. Somewhere above them, elevators rose and fell in their shafts, carrying people to places they needed to be. But here, surrounded by growing things and quiet purpose, Sarah Bennett felt more grounded than she had in years. And beside her, teaching his daughter about the patience of growing food. A quiet hero tended his tomatoes and asked for nothing more.